Before we dive in, we are putting this story out there to keep you informed about the real situation on the ground in the Northeast. If you believe in the work of our gallant troops and want to stay updated on security news, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel right now. Your support keeps these stories coming. Now, let me take you into the heart of the Borno night. It was late on February the 14th, a day the rest of the world reserves for love, roses, and candlelit dinners. But in the dusty, rugged terrains of Pulka and Mandara Kirau, the language was different. It wasn't the language of love, it was the language of war. Imagine the scene. The Harmattan haze hangs low over the communities, the kind of cold that bites through your bones. Families are asleep, tucked away in their homes, hoping for a peaceful night. But out there, in the deep recesses of the dreaded Sambisa Forest, movement had begun. The calm before the storm was about to be shattered. Now, at this point, you need to understand the geography here. Pulka is a strategic town, a gateway community in Gwoza local government area, not too far from the Cameroonian border. Mandara Kirau is another vital cog in the machinery of defense in that region. And on this night, the terrorists, a mix of Boko Haram and the more ruthless ISWAP faction, decided to test the resolve of the Nigerian military in not one, but two locations simultaneously. It was a coordinated roll of the dice, a classic pincer move designed to stretch our troops thin, to cause maximum chaos, and to prove they could strike at will. But as the old saying goes, the hunter who laughs last forgot that the lion was just reloading. Let's start with Pulka. According to the detailed account released by the Media Information Officer of Operation Hadin Kai, OHK, Lieutenant Colonel Sani Uba, the terrorists poured out of the Sambisa Forest axis like a swarm of locusts. We are talking about a large group of determined fighters, high on whatever ideology or narcotics they rely on, launching what the military described as a fierce assault on the troops of Sector 1. The sound would have been terrifying. The distinctive rattle of AK-47s, the whoosh of rocket-propelled grenades, and the desperate shouts of men trying to kill each other in the dark. The terrorists threw everything they had at the defensive positions. But here's where the story gets deeper. These were not raw recruits manning the posts. These were soldiers who have lived this nightmare for months. The initial contact was brutal. The statement from the military admits, and I respect this honesty because war is not a Hollywood movie, that the sheer weight of the assault caused a section of the perimeter fence to be breached. For a moment, the unthinkable happened. The terrorists got inside the wire. They managed to destroy some combat enablers, a military term for things like vehicles, night vision equipment, or communication gear, and they set ablaze some accommodation. In that moment, if you were a resident of Pulka hiding under your bed, your heart must have stopped. You would be thinking, is this the end? Are they coming for us next? Also, imagine being a soldier's wife or child in that barracks, hearing the screams and the gunfire so close. The fear must have been paralyzing. The bravery isn't just in firing a gun, it's in holding your nerve when the line has been crossed. But just when the terrorists thought they had the upper hand, just when they were probably radioing back to Sambisa that they were winning, reality hit them like a freight train. From the 26th Brigade, located further away, help arrived. They didn't just come to mop up, they came with overwhelming firepower. The momentum shifted instantly. The hunted became the hunted. The terrorists who moments before were destroying property were now fighting for their lives, retreating in disarray back towards the Sambisa axis. Here is a critical question for you to ponder. What does the speed of those reinforcements tell you about the coordination and intelligence of the Nigerian army? The aftermath of Pulka tells the real story. Credible intelligence, as Lieutenant Colonel Uba put it, confirmed that the terrorists suffered severe casualties. Among the dead was a senior commander identified as Abou Aisha. They say he took a critical gunshot wound to the neck. Game over. The military was clear. No soldier died in the Pulka engagement. Now, let's swing over to Mandara Kirau. Because while the Pulka attack was happening, another tragedy was being scripted just down the road. Except this time, the script was flipped entirely. In Mandara Kirau, the attackers were specifically identified as ISWAP terrorists. And these guys are not your ordinary ragtag bandits. They are heavily armed, often dressed in military fatigue, and they operate with a twisted sense of military discipline.
They arrived mounted on gun trucks and motorcycles, a classic insurgent tactic to combine heavy firepower with the mobility to navigate the rough terrains. But here is where the story takes a beautiful turn. Listen to this phrase from the military statement: anticipating such action. Let that sink in. These troops weren't just sitting there waiting to be hit. They had studied the enemy. They knew ISWAP loves multi-pronged attacks. They knew they would come with speed and violence. So what did they do? They tactically emplaced combat teams.
Imagine the terrorists roaring into the village on their machines, high on adrenaline, expecting to find scared soldiers running for cover. Instead, they rode straight into a kill box. The troops were waiting in the shadows, fingers on the triggers, watching the enemy walk into the trap. The exchange was fierce. The night sky over Mandara Kirau would have lit up with tracer fire, red and green bullets zipping through the air like angry fireflies. And when the smoke cleared, something remarkable had happened. The defense of the location had not been breached at all. Not an inch. The terrorists were repelled, their bodies littering the outskirts, their surviving comrades dragging the wounded away into the darkness. But this victory, unlike Pulka, came with a heavy heart. Because while no base was breached, some lives were lost. The military confirmed that some gallant personnel and civilian Joint Task Force members paid the supreme price. Let's pause here. We often talk about casualties as if they are just numbers on a spreadsheet. But these were men, fathers, sons, husbands. The civilian JTF members deserve a special mention here. These are the local vigilantes, the young men from the community who decided they would rather die fighting than live in fear. They know the terrain, they know the faces, and they stand shoulder to shoulder with the soldiers, often with less training and less equipment. When the news of this reached the families in the early morning hours of Sunday, February 15th, the grief would have been unbearable. A knock on the door, a uniformed officer delivering the news no family wants to hear. That is the other side of the Valentine's Day battle, the side of empty chairs and tear-soaked pillows. For those who were injured, the response was immediate. The air component of Operation Hadin Kai and Nigerian Army aviation platforms scrambled. The wounded were evacuated by air, lifted out of the danger zone and rushed to advanced medical facilities. That speed saves lives. Another angle to this issue, the follow-up operations. After the battle, the troops didn't just high-five and relax, they pursued. Along the Kimber axis, they found blood trails, abandoned items, and shallow graves. Eyewitness accounts confirmed that the terrorists were carrying their dead and dying away, trying to hide the scale of their loss.
Now, from this point, we need to understand the bigger picture. Why did this happen on February 14th? Military analysts suggest that these failed attacks are a sign of growing desperation. For months, Operation Hadin Kai has been putting the squeeze on the terrorists. Their logistics have been targeted, their leaders taken out, their camps overrun. Just days before this attack, troops had neutralized 16 insurgents in the Konduga area and destroyed their camps. When you corner a rat, it becomes aggressive, it attacks. That is exactly what we are seeing here. The terrorists are being suffocated, so they are lashing out, trying to prove they are still relevant. But here is the truth, they are losing. Let me ask you another question. If the terrorists were truly winning, would they need to launch coordinated attacks on 2 towns and still fail to hold any ground? Think about it. In the Pulka attack, they breached a fence but were kicked out. In Mandara Kirau, they didn't even get that far. They are taking heavy losses, losing commanders, and running back into the forest with their tails between their legs. The people of Borno are resilient. They have lived through this for over a decade. But nights like this shake even the strongest souls. Imagine the psychological toll on a child in Pulka who now associates the 14th of February not with chocolates and hearts, but with the sound of explosions. However, there is hope. The fact that the troops anticipated the attack in Mandara Kirau suggests that the intelligence network is working. And where does that intelligence come from? Often it comes from the locals. The farmer who saw strange movement, the woman who noticed she hasn't seen her neighbor in days, the shepherd who heard whispers in the bush. This is where the message of communal responsibility comes in. Security is not just the job of the man in uniform. It is the job of every citizen. If you see something, say something. The vigilance of the public is the first line of defense. How safe do you feel in your community right now? Do you know the emergency numbers of the security forces in your area? If not, it's time to find out.
As we wrap up this narrative, let's look at what we can learn from this. 1. Stay vigilant. The terrorists were spotted before they attacked. If you notice unusual gatherings or movement in your outskirts, report it immediately. 2. Trust the troops. The military has shown they can respond. When you hear gunfire, follow the instructions of the security forces. Don't be a spectator. 3. Support the CJTF. These local heroes are making the ultimate sacrifice. If your community has a vigilante group, support them with information and encouragement. 4. Pray for the fallen. Never forget the families of the soldiers and CJTF members who died. Their sacrifice, the supreme price, is the reason the attack was not a massacre. The Battle of Pulka and Mandara Kirau will probably not make it into the history books. It will be a footnote in the long war against terror. But for those who were there, it was everything. It was a night of terror, a moment of courage, and a testament to the fact that the Nigerian soldier, when given the backing and the firepower, can hold the line. Operation Hadin Kai has reaffirmed its dominance. They have promised to dismantle terrorist networks and restore peace. Nights like February 14th show that the road is still rough, but the destination is clear. Let's give credit where it is due. To the troops at the front line, to the pilots who flew the medevac missions, and to the families waiting at home. We salute you.